welcome to your Monday edition of Learn Extra Live. Beautiful Monday. It was a bit chilly, but it's okay, hey? And I'm not alone. I am Looney, by the way. Natasha!
Hi, Lenny. I'm glad that you're so excited to see
Yes,
me.
you know-
She's even singing.
What
It's great to be here,
What are
Lenny.
we doing for the mindsetters today?
All right, guys. Well, we said last week 2 parts of finance, and this is the second week we're looking at finance, and today we'll be looking at more in-depth financial calculations.
All right, mindsetters, I hope you guys are very excited for your show just as I am. And remember, guys, to hit us up on Facebook on facebook.com/Learn Extra. Our Twitter handle is @Learn Extra, and you can download all the show notes, the videos, and the schedules on learn.mindset.co.za. So if you've been watching the shows in the previous weeks, we do have a competition called Get Connected. What we want you guys to do is go to our Facebook page. There is a graphic on our page with all the information about the competition, but I will explain it right now. All you need to do is go to a link. There's a link on our Facebook page. It takes you to a Curio page where you need to enter the code LEARN in capital letters. Then you pick a teacher. There are teachers there: Natasha, Llewellyn, Wilson, Tracy, Martin. You pick your favorite teacher, and then once you've done that, you go to our Facebook page. There are links for all the teachers. So if you've picked Natasha, you go to the link that's got /Natasha. You click on that link, it will take you to a picture with Natasha's beautiful face. You like that picture. And then, once you've done that, you go back to the picture with all the information, you share it. Once you've done that, you stand a chance to win Vodacom airtime. So all the people who've shared the competition graphic will stand a chance to win Vodacom airtime, and all the people who have the most likes, for the teacher with the most likes, will be sent into a lucky draw to win a Sony Xperia L. So with me right now is a little box.
Yes. Wow. Shake that box.
So I want you to come and just pick a name here.
Okay.
The very first winner, guys, will be
I'll be
announced
the
for the
adjudicator.
airtime for the Get Connected
All right.
competition.
So, who's going to say the name?
You can say it.
Okay, so our first winner for today's show is Lerato Manana.
All right.
Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Congratulations, Lerato Manana.
done.
You have won yourself Vodacom airtime. Yay! Mindset is if you want to be like Lerato, wow. Woo. Go to our Facebook page. All the information is there. And another competition we have, never have less than one here. We always want to keep you guys connected. So, Casio, if you want to win yourself a Casio calculator, all you need to do is go to our Facebook page. The Test Yourself link is on our Facebook page. You win yourself this awesome Casio calculator. Then you can just be a genius at maths, accounting, everything. All the lessons that need a calculator. You'll be a genius. All the information is on our Facebook page. Right now, though, Natasha.
All right, wow, after all of that exciting
Yes.
news, well done, Lerato. Guys, today we're looking at finance, a very serious section, also a section that you will see in everyday life. It's one of those sections that has a lot of everyday real-life applications, and you can see it in practice all of the time, all over the world. All right, so we're going to be looking at compound interest calculations. We're going to discuss inflation, timelines, and changing interest rates. But before we do any of that, I just want to remind you guys about your challenge question for today. All right, this is quite a long one in terms of all the words that I put into it, guys, but if you break it down using a timeline, which we will discuss later on, you will find this question to be not as complicated as it looks. So we've got a savings account that's opened with an initial deposit of 3,000 Rand. 1 year later, a second deposit of 2,000 Rand is made. 3 years after the account was opened, a third deposit of 8,000 Rand is made. At the end of the 4th year, a final deposit of 12,000 Rand is made. The interest rate for the first 2 years was 8% per annum, compounded annually, and the interest rate was then increased to 9% per annum for the remaining period. You are asked to calculate the total accumulated amount at the end of the 5-year period. Okay, guys, so that's quite a lot of thinking to get you guys, working on those financial calculators. If you've already got your Casio one, go for it, working on your timelines, and we'll check in with you later to see if any of you have the answer. But let's go over a quick summary of what we're going to cover in today's lesson. Just a reminder of what some of these terms are. Inflation is the average increase in the cost of goods and services over a period of time. Now, inflation, remember, it's always at work, right? Remember, you guys, you probably hear your parents or your grandparents saying something like, I remember when the movies was 2 rand. Hey, Loni, do you remember anything that was much cheaper?
Even. They used to call it Bioscope.
Bioscope, that's it. Bioscope. It used to be 2 rand.
Yes.
And now if you go to a movie, it's what, 45,
Yes.
60, I don't know, 45 rand.
Even close to, okay, when you, yeah, 50.
For one person.
Let's say just 50.
50
'cause I was
rand. So
about to
if
say
you look
100.
at that, I mean, from say 2 rand to 50 rand, that's a hell of an increase. And that is inflation at work. So inflation is really the increase. It's that average increase in prices. Obviously, as the years go on and on and on, things become more and more expensive. And that's really what inflation is all about. When we look at inflation, we use the compound interest formula to calculate that. Timelines is a visual representation of a financial problem. So guys, today in your challenge question, each and every one of you that do try that question, you're going to need to use a timeline. So I want to quickly just remind you guys what a timeline looks like. Or for some of you, maybe you've seen it for the first time. All right, in fact, I'm going to take a line that's completely solid. There we go. All right, so that's your timeline. Remember, it's a visual representation. I'm just going to take some arbitrary time values and put them on. The values that we represent on our timeline are capital T and subscript N, where N represents the point in time that we are looking at. So on your timeline, you represent present time right now as time 0, and then things happen 1 year later or 2 years later, as you've seen in your challenge question, and I'm sure as you've practiced in your exams and tests and so on and at school. So we represent each of those time periods on your timeline up until the final point in time. And we then, above those points, T0, T1, T2, etc., you write down what is happening at that point in time. All right, so when we actually look at an application using the timeline, this is going to make much more sense, but also it's something you should use quite a bit when your calculations become quite complicated and when you have a lot of deposits, a lot of withdrawals, a lot of changing interest rates. You need a timeline to see and to summarize what's been given in your problem. Changing interest rates, well, generally interest rates will always fluctuate with time. So if you take a lump sum of money and you invest it, say you get an interest rate initially of 8%, it doesn't stay at 8%, that will fluctuate over time, and so that can increase or decrease depending. All right, so if you take a lump sum of money, invest it, your interest rate may change. Classic example of a time when interest rates change is your home loans. Well, not your home loans, your parents' home loans. If you take out a home loan, the rate can change, and you can suddenly see instead of paying 5,000 rand a month, you're paying 5,300 rand. So interest rates can change over the period of loans and investments. Okay, we're going to go straight into question 1. And to do this question, although you don't need it, I'm going to start introducing the timeline, and we're going to use it to summarize the information that's been given in this question. We are told that Dave invests 4,600 rand for 4 years at 10% per annum, simple interest. Okay, very important point there. This is simple interest. So as I said, we don't really need a timeline, but let's use one. Again, the wrong line. There we go. All right, so he invested for 4 years. So starting off now, he's putting that money into a bank or wherever he's putting it. He's doing that investment now. So that's times 0. How much is he putting away? He's putting away 4,600 rand. Okay. And this is invested for 4 years at 10%. So this is going to go all the way. So we've got year 1, year 2, all the way to year 4. Okay. And during that period, your interest rate or his interest rate is 10% per annum, simple interest. Now, guys, remember, if they're talking about simple interest, we need to just note here the formula we're going to be using is our simple interest formula, 1 plus I times N. Okay, so that's what we're using for the first 4 years, and you've been told that the interest rate in those 4 years is 10%. So we'll write the decimal form of that. So we do 10 divided by 100, and you get 0.1. Okay, so the interest rate at work for the first 4 years is 10% simple interest. Then he invests the accumulated amount. So whatever he has at this point in time, he then takes that and he invests it for another 2 years at 12% per annum, but now it's compound interest. So another 2 years. So we're going to carry on our timeline. We've got year 5 and then year 6. Okay, so whatever he's got at that point, he takes that and he invests it for 2 years at 12% per annum compound interest. Compound interest, that means for the final 2 years, what are we going to be using? The compound interest formula. Okay, 1 plus I to the power of N. Your interest rate at work in those last 2 years, in decimal form, we're going to take 12 divided by 100, and you get 0.12. So your interest rate here is 0.12. Once you've summarized everything into this timeline, guys, it's actually very easy to then decipher or decide what it is that you need to do from your timeline, okay? You can see that he put that amount in, 4,600 Rand. That is then worked on by simple interest for a 4-year period. At that point in time, time 4, whatever accumulated amount is in that account is then invested for a further 2 years, and that is then at a compound interest of 12%. So let's write all of this down into a solution. All right, so I'm going to say at time 6, so at the end of the period, the final amount is going to be equal to the initial amount, which is 4,600 Rand, and that is at a compound interest rate of 10% for a period of 4 years. Now at this point you can decide, you can either then use your calculator and work out what this value is. You can do that. So you can work out this value. If you're going to use your calculator at this point, guys, and you're going to work out what is the value of this 4,600 Rand, keep every single decimal point. Don't round off at all, because the question is not yet over and you don't want to introduce rounding off errors. So at this point, if you're using your calculator, use your calculator memory and keep that entire figure in the memory, which you're going to use for the rest of the question. I'm not going to use the calculator at that point. I want to show you guys the much more efficient way to do this. So this will give us the value, or the value of the investments at point, or at the 4th year, okay? But we then know that whatever's in there, so this entire amount, whatever's in there, is going to be reinvested at a compound interest rate of 12%. So if I want to move from time 4 to time 6, I simply need to take my accumulated amount and use my compound interest formula. So it's 1 plus 0.12 to the power of 2. I use my compound interest formula to take this amount at time 4 and move it all the way to the end of the time period. When I've written it out like this, there's no need for me to round off or anything, because I'm going to put this entire thing into the calculator and see what we get. Okay, so we've got 4,000. All right, Smart Ink, there we go. Smart Ink, turn on, turn off. What do we do here? Hopefully that's gone. There we go. Okay, so we're going to write in exactly what we see. We've got 4,600 Rand simple interest, 1 plus 0.1 times 4, close brackets, and then close brackets again. That whole thing is going to be moved forward for 2 years at 12%, so it's 1.12. All I've done there is I've added the 1 and the 0.2, and that's going to be to the power of 2. Okay, so our entire calculation in one step, and we get an answer of 8,078.34. So 8,078.34 if we round it to the nearest cent. All right. So he's going to, if he puts 4,600 Rand, unlike if he just put it under his bed and slept on it, it's going to stay 4,600 Rand in 6 years' time. If he invested it at simple interest and then it was increased to compound interest, he'll end up with close to double the amount. Not quite, but close to double the amount when at the end of the 6-year period. All right, guys, I think it's time for a quick break, Looney.
All right. Mindsetters, we are going to take a break, but before we do, congratulations to Moses Modupi. You have won yourself a Cassia calculator from last week's Grade 10 Test Yourself competition. Mindsetters, if you want to be like Moses, go to our Facebook page. All the information about the Test Yourself competition is there. With that said, let's take a very quick break, and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. If you can see here, you see? Two shorties.
The one
And we
tall
were
and the
having
one
a little
short.
debate. Who's short, who's tall. I'm the same size. Same height, same size.
Yes, Looney. Okay.
So we're going to do another draw, guys. So I hope you guys are watching, because you're going to win airtime. If you're not watching, then you're going to miss out. So the Get Connected competition is going on. I explained it during the first segment. All the information is on our Facebook page. So now it's time for that. Okay.
A shake and a select.
Yes.
All right, our second winner, Kwezi Adams.
Yay.
Congratulations, Kwezi.
You have won yourself Vodacom airtime, Kwezi. Congratulations to you.
So, Looney, are these names going up somewhere? How will they know?
We will tell them. No, we'll let them know. We always get them
You've
clued
got
up
it
on
sorted.
Yes, we have
Okay,
it sorted.
good.
Kwezi Adams, you have won yourself Vodacom airtime.
Cheers. Okay, as Lenny makes her way back there. All right, guys, I hope that you've all had a look at your challenge question already. I'm eager to see if any of you have the right answer for that. But we're going to carry on with question 2, looking at a little bit of inflation in this one. Here we know that, we're told that a union leader says that salaries have to double every 7 years to keep up with the rate of inflation. So what average yearly rate of inflation does he imply? So what is the interest? So if you were looking for, and I mean, this is quite also a real life situation, I think, because, you know, you often hear union leaders calling for 10% increase, 20% increase, sometimes ridiculous amounts. How do they get that? Well, let's have a look. Okay, so here we know that salaries have to double every 7 years. They don't give you a specific value. All they tell you is that it's got to double. So if your initial salary P is X, then the final salary, or the accumulated amount we want at the end of that 7 years, has got to be 2 times X. Okay, so by using a variable, we're saying it doesn't matter what amount it is, it's going to be 2 times that amount at the end. Okay, so your X is just your placeholder. And every 7 years, we know that N is equal to 7. What average rate of inflation does he imply? Now, guys, think about this. How are you going to do this? Okay, hopefully you've all been paying attention in class, and you've been paying attention now during the show. We're talking about inflation. We know what N is, we know what A is, we know what P is, and we need to work out the value for I. But now, do you use simple interest or do you use compound interest? What do we use to work out inflation? And for those of you who were listening right at the beginning when we did the summary, you would remember that I stated right at the outset that whenever you're looking at inflation, you use the compound interest formula. Okay, so the formula we're going to be using is A is equal to P times 1 plus I to the power of N. And the variable we're looking for is I. All right, so the final amount is going to be 2 times whatever the original amount was. And when we set it out in this way, you can see it actually seems to be a pretty straightforward calculation. All right? We're trying to get to the I, so if I divide both sides by x, obviously x is a salary, so it's never going to be naught. It's not possible because no one will work for nothing. Okay, so therefore x can't be naught. I divide both sides by x, and I'll get 2 is equal to 1 plus I to the power of 7. In order to get rid of that 7 there, the power, we can take the 7th root on both sides. All right, and here if I raise that to the power of 1 over 7, the 7's cancel, and I just get 1 plus I. So therefore I will be equal to the 7th root of 2 minus 1. All right, and then we simply need to use our calculator to work that out. So the 7th root, so on your calculator, it's shift and that button, and it's the 7th root of 2 minus 1. So in decimal form, your interest rate is 0,104. All right, so therefore, in a percentage form, we times by 100. You notice I kept the entire figure there so we don't have any rounding off errors. And our interest rate is 10.4%. So in other words, what we're saying is that in order to keep up with inflation, the interest, the rate that will be applicable there is 10.4%. Okay, so in order for those salaries to double, these workers need to get a 10.4% salary increase in that 7-year period. Okay, all very practical and all easy to see in the real world. Just open up the newspapers and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. All right, let's move on to question 3. Now in this question, there is a little mention of exchange rates, but let's have a look because this one's got a little trick in it, and let's see if you guys hopefully picked it up and you've got the answer to this one at home. Okay, they say a laptop is imported from Germany when the exchange rate was 8.91 to the euro. Okay, the euro obviously being the currency in Germany. The retail price in South Africa at that time was 11,800 Rand. 1 year later, the Rand weakened. Now remember guys, when we're talking about a currency weakening, in this case we're talking about the Rand weakening, what it means is that it costs more rands to buy one of the other currencies. So in this case, euros. It costs more rands to buy 1 euro. And you can see that it says it weakened against the euro and the exchange rate was then 10 Rand 40 to the euro. They say calculate the expected increase in the selling price of the laptop based on the change in the exchange rate. So let's have a look at what happened here. Your exchange rate, it went from 8.91 Rand to the euro to 10 Rand 40. So based on this change, based on this percentage increase, what can we expect to pay in a year's time for this laptop? So the first thing we've got to do is work out what the percentage change was. Okay, so we work out the percentage increase. All right. And hopefully all of you remember how to do percentage increases. So your final value minus your initial value, all divided by your initial value. Okay, and we times that by 100 to get our percentage. Okay, so let's do all of that on our calculator. So we've got 10.4 minus 8.91 all over 8.91, and that whole thing we multiply by 100, and that gives us 16.72%. So 16.72%, and that was your percentage increase. Again, you notice I haven't rounded off completely because I want to keep that value in the calculator so that we don't have any rounding off errors when we get to the end. So what we've said here is the rand has weakened basically by 16.7%. So therefore, it should cost 16.7% more to buy this laptop. So how do we work out the new price of the laptop? Well, you simply take the old price, which is 11,800 rand, and we find the percentage 16.72% increase on 11,800 rand. Okay, so I'm going to say 11,800 times 0.1672, so my percentage in decimal form. I want to see how much more in rand terms am I paying for this laptop. Alright, so we take that, we times it by 11,800, and we see it's 1,973 rand and 28 cents more. Therefore, I will now pay a year later. You're going to pay 11,800 rand plus this new amount of 1,000, or this increase in the amount 1973.28. Again, I haven't rounded off. We've kept that answer on the calculator. So we're going to add to that 11,800 rand, and we get 13,773 rand and 29 cents. So it's 13,773 and 29 cents. Okay, so you're paying a whole close to 2,000 rand just within a year because of how these exchange rates have fluctuated. You're going to pay close to 2,000 rand more just in a year. That's quite ridiculous. Hey, Looney, shows you what happens with exchange rates. They change all the time. You pay almost 2,000 rand to buy exactly the same thing a year later. All right, guys. Okay, so those were two questions to get you thinking about inflation and exchange rate. Looney, I think it's time to take a break before we do our challenge question.
All right. Mindsetters, let's take a very quick break and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. So if you want to improve your math skills and test your skills against other Mindsetters, all you need to do is go to momats.nokia.com/ZA. Join the Mindset group and start learning more about maths and start testing your skills with other Mindsetters. Natasha?
Looney, are we all done with our drawers? It's quite exciting.
Oh, you want another one? Oh, yes, we can have another one.
Let's do another one.
Almost forgot. We need to do three. Okay, let me come to you very quickly. Ooh. Okay,
last one here.
Last one for today's show.
All right. And we've got Rip for Mulo, yes. Knowledge Baloyi.
Yes, congratulations, Rip for Mulo, Knowledge Baloyi. You have won yourself Vodacom airtime. Thank you for that reminder.
No problem. We don't want anyone going home without their airtime.
Yes, they must win all the airtime.
All right, guys. So hopefully some of you have had a chance to answer the challenge question and you know how to do it. We'll check with Looney later on to see if we've got some answers from you guys, but let's get straight into it. Okay, we are told that a savings account is opened with an initial deposit of 3,000 rand. And guys, what I'm going to do is as we go up and read the question, I'm going to put this information onto our timeline. So I'm going to draw up a timeline. Remember, it's just a representation of what they're telling you is going on in this specific question. Okay. All right. So a savings account is opened with an initial deposit of 3,000 rand. So that means now, at time 0, the account is opened with 3,000 Rand. All right, so we put that on the timeline. 1 year later, a second deposit of 2,000 Rand is made. So at time 1, we deposit another 2,000 Rand. Okay. 3 years after the account was opened. So it's not 3 years after the second deposit, it's 3 years after the account was opened. A third deposit of 8,000 Rand is made. So 3 years, was that 3 years? 3 years after the account was opened, so we've got time 1, time 2, and then at time 3, there's a deposit of 8,000 Rand. All right, at the end of the 4th year, a final deposit of 12,000 Rand is made. So at time 4, the last deposit of 12,000 Rand is made. Okay. The interest rate for the first 2 years was 8% per annum. So the interest rate for your first 2 years, okay, it's 8% per annum. So I'm going to write it in decimal form, 0.08. And then it increases to 9% for the remaining period. Now they're asking you to calculate the accumulated amounts at the end of 5 years. All right, so we want to know what the accumulated amount is at time 5. Okay, and for the rest of the period here, we are told that your interest rate is 9%. So all very colorful, but all hopefully making sense so that we can get to that final accumulated amount. Now, once you've got all of your information on a timeline, once it's all summarized, you then have to use your compound interest formula to work out what your final amount is. Guys, there are different methods to work out and to move along different points on the timeline. You know, you can work out your accumulated amount, take your calculator, take those values, and then move it on. But we want to do things more efficiently. So we're going to write down the whole equation, if you like, in one line. And then we're going to find the value at the end of time 5 using our calculator. So we want to do it as efficiently as possible, rather than making a mess with the rounding off and that kind of thing. All right. So essentially, we need to know what's happening at time 5. All right. And we're going to take each individual amount. So each of these amounts, we're going to take them and move them individually to point 5 or to time 5. All right. So that's the method we're using. We're taking each amount and moving it individually along the timeline. We're not going to combine everything and get different values in our calculator and round off at different points and that kind of thing. We're going to move each amount individually along the timeline. All right. So initially you started with 3,000 Rand. Okay. We know that the interest rate for the first 2 years was 0.08. So if I'm taking 3,000 Rand in 2 years' time, working with compound interest, what will I get at the end of 2 years? Well, it will be 3,000. This is just using my compound interest formula, times 1.08 to the power of 2, because for the first 2 years, your interest rate was 8%. Now, if you need to get from here to there, the interest rate that's going to get you from time 2 to time 5 is 9%. So we use our compound interest formula again on this accumulated amount and move it forward. How many time periods? Well, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 time periods. So that entire accumulated amount is going to have an interest rate of 9% for 3 years. All right, so we're going to do this with each one in turn. All right, so that's the 3,000 Rand sorted. Now we have a look at 2,000 Rand. Okay, so I've put a plus there. We're going to take the 2,000 Rand. that has an interest rate of 8% for just a year. And then that entire accumulated amount has an interest rate of 9% over the remaining period, which is 3 years. Alright guys, I'm going to do each individual amount on separate lines and in lots of different colors so you guys can see clearly what's going on there. Alright, then we move on to our third deposit, which was 8,000 Rand. Okay, so the 8,000 Rand is only from time 3 to time 5. So it's not even going to have this interest rate of 8% working on this 8,000 Rand, right? Simply from time 3 to time 5 at a compound interest rate of 9%. So we're going to say plus 8,000 times 1.09 to the power of, well, let's have a look. How many time periods are we moving here? It's 1, 2. Okay, so for 2 years. And then the final amount, 12,000 Rand, well, that's in the account for only a year. So we're going to move that forward at 9% over 1 year. So it's going to be plus 12,000 times 1.09 to the power of 1. So we can leave that 1 out. All right. Okay, so let's go through it again. What did we do? We took the 3,000 Rand that was initially deposited. The interest rate for 2 years was 8%, so we moved that to time 2. We then took that entire accumulated amount and said, well, that's going to have an interest rate of 9% for the remaining period, being 3 years. All right? Then we had 2,000 Rand in the account for a 1-year rate of 8%. And then that again at time 5, to move it to time 5, it's 9% over 3 years. They then deposited a third amount of 8,000 Rand that was allowed to stay in the account for 2 years at an interest rate of 9%. And then the final deposit made at time 4 of 12,000 Rand was in the account for a year at 9%. So all you simply need to do now is put all of this into your calculator in one line if we can see everything. All right, so let's try that. All right. So I'm going to move the calculator over this way so we can get all our figures that we're working with in. All right, we've got in brackets 3,000 times 1.08 to the power of 2. And then we're going to close that bracket. And then that whole thing is going to move forward for a period of 3 years. So we're going to times that by 1.09, close brackets, to the power of 3. All right. We're then going to come down and add 2,000. And guys, it's important how you use your brackets. It's 2,000 times 1.08, and that entire amount is going to be times by 1.09 to the power of 3. All right, and then we've got plus, and let's hope that I've made absolutely no errors here and we're going to go straight smooth sailing to the final answer, and that's to the power of 2 plus 12,000 times by 1.09. All right, so if we've got everything in the calculator correctly, we get an answer of, I did not put everything into the calculator correctly. All right, so we're going to have to do it in steps because as you can see, that makes absolutely no sense. So we're going to redo the calculator steps only, and I think what I'm going to do is add each one individually so we don't end up with this big mess at the end. All right, so the first one, we've got 3,000 Rand, and that's going to be times 1.08 squared. Right, and then that entire amount is going to be times by 1.09 to the power of 3. Okay, and we get an answer of 4531. You can store this in your memory, but because, not in your own memory, in the calculator's memory, but because we just want to keep this on the board for you guys to see, I'm going to write each of the answers down. So it's 4531. 4531.56547, and you don't want to round off just yet, so therefore it would be more efficient to do everything at once on the calculator, but because I've made an error once, I'm not going to do it again and then go through that whole error again. Alright, then we're going to do the next one, 2000 times by 1.08. And that's times by 1.09 to the power of 3. And here we get 279726, 279726. 264. All right, plus. Okay, and the last two we can risk doing all together. We've got 8,000 times by 1.09 squared. All right, plus 12,000 times by 1.09, close brackets, and that gives us 22584, 22584.8. Alright guys, so now let's add everything together. Plus 4531.565477. Obviously you will have this in your memory, so you'll simply recall memory for each one. And I'm going to take that out. Let's just work out our answer there. So we're on 27116. Move it over here. And then we're going to add on 2797.26264. Alright, that looks better. So that gives us an answer of 29,913 Rand and 62 cents. So it's 29,913 and 62 cents. Okay, so at the end of that 5-year period, you end up with that amount in that account using the fact that you've put in deposits at different points in time and using the fact that there were different interest rates at each of those different points in time. Hopefully you guys at home, there was no pressure and you did it all nicely on your calculator, because really it can all be done in one step on your calculator and you don't have to write down each individual answer. All right, Luni, do we have any answers or any correct answers?
We have one similar. Did you round off? What happened to you? Did you round
No,
off?
we didn't round anything off.
Because younger Clint Boy is saying 29,913.63.
Okay. So let's just have a look at what the final answer is. He's right. It's 63. Correct.
That's the only correct answer.
Well done. Wow.
Oh,
if you're giving away
like
prizes, sure, that's deserving.
162,000.
Well, hopefully, guys, those of you that got very close but didn't get exactly this answer, you can see where you went wrong. This is really your proper exam type questions. These are for, you guys, you're going for those 75s and so on. This kind of question, this is the one you need to master, because it can come out, and it probably will. All right, Luni, so do we have any more questions to take?
Yes, we have 2 questions. Angabez is asking if you could please repeat question 2.
Repeat question 2. So let's go through question 2 and see what question 2 says. Oh, the one about the union leader. Is there anything specific that he wants us to repeat or just the whole question?
hold.
All right, and what was your other question there?
The other question is, I think you made a mistake in question 1. This is from Joe.
Question 1. Let's quickly check that first. Question 1. I don't think so. If they can tell us where, we can double check.
Okay.
But from what I'm seeing, it's all correct.
All right.
Okay. All right. So let's go over question 2 again. All right. I'll go through it from scratch because the guy doesn't say where exactly he was stuck. So here you were told that a union leader says that salaries have to double every 7 years. Now, the trick with this question is you don't know what the initial salary was. Okay? So we don't know what the initial salary was. So we say let the initial salary P be equal to X. Now, once you have that starting point, because remember, you've got no idea what the salary is starting at. We just know that it's some value. So if we have a starting point by saying, let the initial salary be X, when they ask us to double that in 7 years' time, we know that whatever P was, it doesn't really matter because remember, X is your variable, it's your placeholder. Your final amount in 7 years' time is simply going to be 2 times X. So therefore, double the salary is going to be 2X. And I think that's the only trick in that question is the X and the 2X. Where do we get it from? Well, we say, let the initial salary be X. Therefore, in 7 years' time, double that would be 2X. And the reason this needs to happen, the reason the salaries need to double in 7 years is in order to keep up with the rate of inflation. And we've discussed earlier how inflation changes the prices of goods quite drastically. They asked us what average yearly rate of inflation this implied. So, also in the beginning of the show, I told you that when we're dealing with inflation, we will always use the compound interest formula, which is what we used there. We then put in our final amount as 2X. We had our initial amounts as X. And the interest rate is what we were looking for. Because remember, what they're basically asking you is, what must this increase percentage-wise of the salary be so that in 7 years' time, they will end up with twice the amount of money they started with, all right? So we were looking for your interest rate. We knew that that was going to be for a period of 7 years, so we put N in as 7. And because X was an actual amount, it's an amount of salary, it's not going to be naught. No one is starting with the salary of 0, because then you won't work at all. So the X's just cancel, and we get 2 is equal to 1 plus I to the power of 7. And then in order to get rid of the power of 7, we took the 7th root on both sides. So same as raising to the power 1 over 7. And then we simply solved using our calculator to give us an answer of 10.4%. So wherever you were stuck there, hopefully that's all been cleared up now. Luni, anything else before we say goodbye?
There was just one person didn't understand the challenge question, but then they didn't say specifically which part.
And the challenge question was quite challenging, so they're going to have to go through it. Hopefully now that you've seen the answer, you know how to do that challenge question, because today it was quite a challenge. So I think, Luni, that's it for us for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me with your grade 10 financial maths.
All right, thank you so much, Natasha, for the lesson. Mindset is just a very quick reminder to enter the SA Water game. What it does is that it's a turn-based game that wants to see what you think of the water issues in South Africa. You can play as many times as you want. All you need to do is go to www.watergame.co.za, register yourself, and start playing. You have until the 18th of August to play, and there are a lot of prizes to be won, guys, so make sure you check that out. All the information is on our Facebook page. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time from us, it's a goodbye.